All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're looking at something pretty fascinating, how the productive value, productive power framework, or just the PVPP framework for short, actually helps us decode the hidden mechanics of religion, spirituality, and faith. Now, right off the bat, we're not here to settle theological debates or prove the existence of God. Nope. Instead, we're taking a strictly structural look at what belief actually does to human capability. Like, how exactly does faith generate real, measurable power in everyday people and entire societies? Let's find out. To do this, we'll follow a clear path. We're starting with more than just biology, moving into religion as social architecture, then faith as productive power. After that, we'll look at the value of forgiveness, spirituality and addiction recovery, and wrap up with some important boundaries and cautions. So, Section 1, more than just biology. The starting question. Our journey begins with a foundational and maybe even a bit controversial starting question. Are human choices adequately explained by biology alone? I mean, think about it. If we're fundamentally just biological machines, just neurons firing, chemicals reacting, raw instincts driving the bus, how on earth do we explain free will, or agency, or our incredibly deep-seated need for meaning? Well, the PVPP framework pushes back hard against that purely biological reduction. It argues that we don't just act based on abstract chemistry. We act through interpreted options, symbolic commitments, and the stories we tell about ourselves. Just look at the stark contrast here. On one side, biology gives us the raw physical substrate, right? Things like physical strength, pain tolerance, our basic stress responses. But on the other side, culture and spirituality provide the actual architecture. They hand us the language, the norms, the moral vocabularies, and the inherited frames of meaning that literally dictate how we use that biological substrate to survive. It's wild to think about, but an agent with the exact same physical body, but a radically different spiritual world, actually possesses a completely different set of operative powers. Moving on to Section 2, Religion as Social Architecture. Early societal explanations. Let's zoom out to the macro level for a second and see how early societies actually utilized this cultural architecture. Historically speaking, even if you look at it from a purely secular angle, religion emerged as a brilliant societal invention. It basically solved reoccurring coordination problems. It provided these grand origin and destination narratives that grounded a person in a much larger time horizon. It laid down shared moral rules to make the environment predictable. And absolutely crucial here, it protected whole populations from pure nihilism after catastrophic loss by helping them rationalize unnatural death and immense suffering. So, from a civilization scale perspective, religion acts as this incredibly durable architecture. As you can see, it generates shared rules and stabilizing transfers that brute force or simple market exchanges just can't pull off on their own. It clearly defines our obligations, it stabilizes trust across generations, and it preserves group cohesion under massive threats, situations where pure self-interest would normally just tear a community apart.
All right, Section 3, Faith as Productive Power. The later PVP refinement.
Now, here's where the PVPP framework forces a massive correction to that purely sociological view. It zooms all the way inward to the individual. You see, religion isn't just some top-down social technology. It operates deep within the person. The absolutely crucial point here is that faith is not merely a passive state of belief. It is an active, structural generator of real, tangible, productive power within you. It fundamentally changes what you perceive as possible, what's required, what's forbidden, or even what is redeemable. And this brilliantly highlights why just looking at the social side is totally incomplete. Faith fundamentally reorganizes an individual's emotional strength. Think about a scenario where ordinary reward structures have completely collapsed. When there's literally no immediate biological or financial incentive to keep going, faith steps in and actually widens a person's future corridor. It allows them to absorb incredible amounts of loss without their core identity completely collapsing. Which brings us to Section 4, the value of forgiveness, restoring life trajectories. To really ground this abstract framework, let's look at a deeply human case study. We'll use Christianity as a prime example of generating real, productive value through forgiveness. Far from just being a warm, sentimental feeling, forgiveness literally alters the physical trajectory of a life. Structurally speaking, things like shame, resentment, and retaliation lock us into destructive loops. We just endlessly recycle negative value. But a theology of forgiveness interrupts that exact loop. It makes restoration imaginable and morally permissible. It metabolizes that negative value and reopens a viable recovery corridor. It literally restores actual agency to the person.
Next up is Section 5, Spirituality and Addiction Recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous as a Case Study.
We can see this structural power incredibly vividly when we look at spirituality within addiction recovery, specifically the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. In AA, submitting to a higher power isn't necessarily about forcing a strict metaphysical doctrine down someone's throat. Functionally, it serves a highly specific structural purpose. It breaks the failed closed-loop sovereignty of the addicted self, the old internal manager. That private reasoning that kept authorizing destructive behavior is simply no longer treated as the ultimate sovereign authority.
In this context, spirituality acts as a massive productive power multiplier. It replaces isolation with surrender and humility. It provides recurring social correction through meetings, which actively tears down those private toxic justifications. It gives the individual a completely new structure of meaning, rigorous accountability, and hope. And ultimately, it rebuilds their actual capacity for self-governance by opening a durable non-alcohol recovery corridor. It's pretty amazing when you look at it that way.
And finally, Section 6, Boundaries and Final Thoughts, Proceeding with Caution.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really need to establish some strict boundaries around how we use this framework. It's a powerful lens, for sure, but it requires a lot of discipline. We must maintain respectful neutrality here. While the framework helps us analyze the mechanics of belief and its incredible effects on human viability, it absolutely does not pretend to prove or disprove the existence of God. We also can't just blindly pretend all religious structures are universally positive. Some can absolutely distort reality and rigidify guilt, trapping agents in unproductive loops. We are simply observing structural effects here, nothing more, nothing less.
We are explicitly focusing on the analytical goal. We're examining the structural mechanics of how belief operates in human beings, mapping out recovery paths, and trying to understand endurance. We are leaving the ultimate theological validity, like proving divinity or settling specific doctrines, entirely up to you, the individual viewer.
So, the preferred takeaway for today is simply this. You cannot dismiss the structural reality of faith. Whether you view it as divine truth, cultural inheritance, spiritual reality, or just social architecture, the PVPP framework provides a highly useful way to understand how faith and belief generate real, undeniable productive powers in both individuals and societies. It's a profound architecture that helps human beings actually live, make choices, fail, and, most importantly, recover.
I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. If our internal structures of belief, our narratives, our faith, our spiritual frameworks, can literally rebuild our physical capacity to survive and recover, even when biology alone tells us to quit, what does that say about the true limits of human endurance? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today.